Alrighty, g'day team. Thanks for the overwhelming response to the first video. Nah, in all seriousness, that was just a little kick off to learn how to do some editing, introduce myself and the bike. Today, Saturday morning, beautiful Saturday morning here in Briz. Unfortunately, the lens from the tail light came off when I was going for a ride yesterday, so I can't go out for another strap today. So what I decided to do was go straight into the Finding top dead center and doing the valve clearance for the bike. However, as I already talked about, place is a bit of a mess. Need to do some clean up, need to get a couple of things from Super Cheap. Bunnings has got a good special on some beers as well. So through the magic of editing, I'll be back shortly with a clean workshop, or workspace should I say. I'll have the tools out that we're going to use. I'll talk through them, what I bought, what I already had, where you can get them from, and then go through the process of first finding top dead center and secondly doing the valve clearances. So I'll see you soon. Okay, sorry for the weird cut. Left you before saying that I had to do a little bit of cleaning up and straightening up things in the garage to get a couple of things from the shops. Turned into a little bit more of an expedition and ended up getting myself a new socket set. Also gave the engine to have a proper 24 hours to cool down, so we can find first off top dead center and then go through the valve clearance. I'll probably make this 2 videos, I think. I'll do a quick talk through some tool stuff first because it's going to make a huge difference. So in the past I've had what you would call the cheapest chips or shit set of sockets. I think you can pick them up from Bunnings for 10 bucks or Big W for 10 bucks or something like that. The crappy steel things that break a lot, but they were cheap, and I just never really thought about tools in the past. But since doing the bike and the car and pulling apart the other bike, I've sort of really come to understand the value of having some good tools at your hands. It'll just make life easier. They won't break. For example, the Sid Chrome socket that I had as I was doing the lowering of the car about 3 weeks ago. 3/8 drive, full size, and as I was under it, I ended up stripping off a couple of the teeth on the inside of the socket head. So in Googling it, I found out that you can get different amounts of teeth inside your socket wrenches, and the higher the count, basically the less throw that you've got to get to click to cinch something in, but it also means that there's more pressure on more parts of the drive on the inside, so you're less likely to break something. So in some ways it's worth spending a bit of money to get something good. What I'll do is I'll show you what I bought today, which is what I should have bought years ago, as a really good just starting out home mechanics kit. And a caveat is I'm not sponsored by anyone or anything like this. I can show you the receipt for where I got this from Bunnings today. It was 60 bucks. 60 bucks well spent, I think. So I'll go through what I bought. I'll show you the tools that we're going to use today. Probably have another weird cut or two while I try and set the camera up on something so you can see the bike properly. But we'll have a walk over to what I've got going on. So as you can see already, just on the bike, I've taken off the seat and the tank to open up the engine so we can take off the top cover there, and down here is where we're going to be looking at the top dead center stuff. As you can see, I've sort of cleared a bit of space around so you can move around, and I've also had a bit of a sit down on the trusty work stool, which is just a milk crate with a towel, to sit down and have a think about what I was going to be doing today. It also gives you an opportunity to just have a pause, have a battle breath, do some Googling, get on the Skyteam resource, take a look to see if there's anyone that's already talked about what you're trying to do, and I'll help remind you what it is that you're looking at doing. So yeah, anyways, we'll go across to the workbench to start with, I guess. So for today, we're going to be using the flathead to take off the viewing cover so we can see the marks for identifying top dead center. I use needle noses, which is not the best thing to use for adjusting the top of the tappets. You'll see what happens with that shortly. A set of feeler gauges, because we need to be able to set the tappets at 0.05 mil as recommended by Michael B. Everyone should have a set of these. They're 20 bucks from Super Cheap. You could probably pick them up better from cheaper from an AutoZone or Harbour Freight if you're in the States, or Amazon if you're shopping online and that sort of thing. But you will need a set of these if you're going to own your bike or own any other bit of engine or equipment, because you will use these on everything. I've used these on the V-Dub when I did the valve adjustment on that a week ago. You just need them. Go out and get some. You can't do this job without them. Then come down into the sockets. We've got 8mm, 10mm, 12mm and a reducer. I do have a small, I can't even remember what the size is, for the socket itself, so I don't technically need a reducer, but this socket itself is not, the socket wrench itself is not very good. Looks alright, but the gears on the inside are hanky, and I really am not a fan of this sort of version of being able to adjust the direction on it. This is the 1/2 inch that I bought the other day from Bunnings. I much prefer this sort of lever. It's got a push button to release your sockets on there, and I'll give it a turn and you'll be able to hear what I mean about the finer clicking if I turn it the right direction. So yeah, so I picked that one up for 25 bucks from Bunnings as well. And the other thing I got, which I've also found to be really useful, is this spanner, open-end spanner and hex wrench, I think they're called, at the end there. So essentially these are like a socket. They can wrench like a socket, and they've got the adjustable head on them as well. And I found these really useful for a lot of different things that I've done, and you'll see them getting used as I go through these videos. Instead of having to make sure you've got clearance to put a socket in, this can sit over the top of the nut or the head of the bolt that you're doing, and you can wrench on it. Having the ability to get up and adjust into different angles makes life a lot better. And I use the 8mm when I'm doing my tappet adjustments. Valve adjustments, sorry. This is the cheap $10 crappy set, which everyone's probably already seen. And then there's another Bunnings special. I picked that up for $7. That was the last one in the shop, but it's a pretty cool little toolkit to have in your bag when you're going on an extended ride, especially because it's got a double-headed socket wrench there, as well as your adjustables. And we'll just have a look at what I got today. Clear my voice and have a sip. So this is today's purchase. Like I said, I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I buy all this shit for myself. And what I found, especially after I bought that bigger socket with the finer teeth that I just showed you before, is that having something like that has just made the world of difference. So from Bunnings, $60. I'm sure you'll be able to get on Amazon if you're international. Again, any of the other tool sites, and find something very similar to this. Comes in quite a large hard plastic case, good hinges on the back so you're not going to trash it if you're using it for anything more than just mucking around in the garage. When you open it up, it's got the foam cover. Now with stuff like this, and I know it sounds dumb and I don't really want to be telling people to suck eggs, but behind that foam is where I've put the receipt. So if anything does bugger up with this set, these actually come with a lifetime warranty. So you can just take it back to Bunnings with the receipt that you got in there and they'll replace it free of charge, no questions asked. Chances of you breaking something are slim to none, but like I said, I broke my SIG chrome socket the other day and I thought they were indestructible. So going through this, obviously you've got your comfort grip socket with my preferred direction adjustment there. And again, if you listen to this, you can hear how fine the teeth are in there. Now, your 3 bits that you're really going to use in here, or 4 should I say, is the ratchet itself, the 2 extension bars, which will make the world of a difference to some of the jobs that you're doing, and your number 10 socket. Now, what I'm actually thinking of doing is see if I can create just a socket set full of number 10s and number 12s, because your number 10 always goes missing. I had 2 number 10s on the bench before I went to the shops, and somehow there's only 1 left now. God knows where the other one's gone, but at least there's 1 there, and I've got 1 in here. You've also got your number 12, which you would use to start with on the strip down, which I'll explain in a second. So those 2 are the ones that you're going to be going to be using most often. Your 14 in here will be used, but again, your extension on here is going to help out, and I'll explain that in a tick. But yeah, just to finish off with, get yourself a decent set of sockets with a good socket wrench in there, good extensions, and your 10, your 12, and your 14. I've never really come across a use previously for the screwdriver socket stuff. That's not to say that it's not going to come up. But yeah, do yourself a favour, get something like this. Stop using the cheap stuff like I was. It's just going to make life so much easier for you. So what I'll do here is I'll get myself set up with the tools on the ground in the workspace. Get a rag out, or a couple of rags out anyways. And firstly what we'll do is go through the process for trying to identify top dead center. And I'll talk through what I've done on the bike. So I'll just pause you there for now, and we'll be back in a second. Okay, sorry for the weird cut. Right, so we're obviously going to be doing top dead center and then adjusting the valves. Probably break it up into 2 videos, I'd say, just because I've already gibbered a fair bit at the start. I thought maybe just while I've got the back off, and I'll continue gibbering some more, I'll be able to show you my dodgy setup for my tail light bracket. Again, just a few brackets from Bunnings from aisle 17 I think it was, and a couple of screws to then mounting the actual tail light itself. And as I said earlier, there's the tail light with the missing lens that I donated to Mount Nebo yesterday when I was doing the drive. Performance CDI from Michael B, just as you can see, cable tied in there. More wiring, which isn't exactly the best, just cable tied up and out of the way. As you can tell, I don't actually have a guard in here to protect anything, or even underneath, which is one reason why I've kept the airbox in, so it doesn't really mess up the engine. However, I don't ride it during the rain. I think last time I rode it during the rain was the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride in 2018 here in Brisbane, which had something like 280 people turn up to it, but it was absolutely pissing down with rain. That was the last time I went in the rain. Anyways, yeah, coming up here. So what we're going to do is identify top dead center. I tend to have to do this a couple of times, which is fine by me, because at the end of the day, the more times I do it, the more times I'm learning how to do something. And like I said, I'm one of those people that need to do things by hand and make my mistakes so I can learn how to do something properly. There's ways that anyone's interested. So what I'll do is try and figure out the best place. It's going to be average to start with. I'll bring that in a bit. Can't really see it. Sorry, I don't really have the best camera stand. It's a stool. So what I'll do is grab out the little step ladder and see if that's low enough down on the bottom step. See if you can actually see what's going on. Maybe not the bottom step. What's that like? You see everything? One more down. We'll go up here, a bit more of a view of everything. So first things first with top dead center is you need to take off, whoops, put my gloves on. That's the other thing. Started wearing these because it just makes life easier when your hands get covered in grease, to actually stay relatively clean, but also manipulate nuts and bolts. I learnt that on the car, so we'll go from there. So to get top dead center, you've got to get this open so you've got viewing into a ball. I'm not even sure what it is. I think it's the magneto. Correct me if I'm wrong again. Like, comment, subscribe, put your comments in to tell me when I've buggered something up. Again, this is just me hacking my way through it. So start with, you've got to get this off. Plastic little bung, easy, flathead screwdriver, and you're in. You've got your viewing port open. A little wipe down while I'm there. The next bit you need to do is to be able to manipulate what's on the inside there, so you can look down here to see what you've got going on, to take a look at your marks. Now you can use your phone to use your light down in there, but I found that one of these little optical lights, nice and easy to manipulate. You can see straight up what's going on in there. You can pick them up from a pharmacy for a couple of bucks, or if your workplace is all right, you might be able to pinch one out of its first aid kit. I got this one through work, through some stuff that we're doing, and they were throwing a bunch out, so I picked up one of those. So next we need to get this little Skyteam plate off. These are little 8mm bolts on here. Now that new kit that I showed you before, the smallest is a 10mm. So this is where we go to having what we've got previously, and I know this is sort of jumping around, we're talking about tools and stuff like that, but it's a good explanation for why you never throw anything away as well. So I've got a little 8mm socket, and I've got a reducer from that $10 kit that I showed you before. So here's the 8mm, and here's a reducer. So that reducer will just fit on the end, little push button to fit that on, drop off, put on. I like them with these push buttons because it's so much more secure. You're never going to drop it off, which I found with the cheap set is that the $10 job drops off. So the reducer's on, 8mm goes on, and let's see if I can get my 50-50 pick right for the right direction to turn it. Nope, buggered it up. So lefty loosey to undo 'em. I always do it in a star pattern. And I always do it so that it's nice and even the way that you're taking them off, because it's pressure fitted on. There's a gasket underneath it. I don't know, that's just how I do it. I've watched mechanics do their stuff. They tend to do it in a methodical order, and I've found that especially when you buy new bits of tool and stuff like that, you want to start looking after it, and you just start thinking about doing things more methodically than if you're just hacking away with something, because everyone wants to look after their bits and pieces so that they're nice and clean, they're not scratched, not broken being the primary thing. And I can understand the irony of having a socket wrench and not using the ratchet function on it. So it should be coming off, unless I've completely stripped out everything by turning it up the wrong way. But turning it left. What? And for some reason, Chris. Well, guess this is why you put things on fucking Facebook, isn't it? Bones it. Absolutely bones it. Which means that I think I've completely screwed the ability oh, Chris. What have you done? So I guess maybe this is an opportunity to use the screwdriver attachment that came with the new little kit we got, especially after we've just absolutely munched up and screwed up. Yeah, we have. Look at that. Oh dear, oh dear. Well, guess I'm going to have to go buy myself a tap and die set now. Yep. Absolutely munched it. I believe the word fuck comes to mind right now. Yep, shredded. So, what we're actually hoping for here is that, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it looks as though it's the nuts themselves that have potentially failed, as opposed to the engine case itself. 3 out of the 4 of them have got a dome look to it, so we'll see how we go from there. It's one of the habits I like to get into after completely screwing something up on the bike and laughing at myself, because there's nothing else you can do except for laugh, especially when you realised just how much you've fucked something up, is putting all the things back to where they need to go, and off comes the cover. A little bit of oil coming out. This is the little gasket that sort of pressure fits in around this bit here, and the oil itself tends to help it stay on when you're going to put it back on, put it back together, all that sort of thing. I always tend to give things a wipe down as I go as well, because it gives you a good indication the next time you pull it apart if something's really gone wrong in there. It doesn't want to come off. The gasket's looking a little bit chewed up, but at this point what I'm more curious about is how much I screwed up my threads in there. Yeah, it's not a good start. Not a good start to YouTubing, I'll tell you that. But I guess the whole idea is that I can make the mistakes so you don't. Ah dear. Like I said, you gotta have a laugh. Okay, anyways, on to the next bit, because we'll address that issue that I created for myself when we put things back together. So inside here you've got a big old nut, which you're probably not going to be able to see very well. It's a 14mm. So best thing to do with that, sort out this camera again, is in your new socket set, I got told it was a 14, could be buggering this up again. Grab out your extension, put your 14 in, yep, give it a test fit, it fits. So essentially what you've done, is you've identified the right size socket so you can rotate the internals there. Using your extension, it's just going to make it easier to manipulate for yourself. Again, press fit on, put it on, let it sit in properly. Now, a few different places I've read have said that you rotate it anti-clockwise to get to your top dead center mark. So ensuring that your ratchet's on the right thing, just give it a bit of a turn. Yep, we're rotating the right direction. Now, what's going to be hard here is showing you guys and being able to see in there exactly what's happening. You can see the marks there. So what you want to do is rotate it till you find the T. And if you take a look on the inside, you see that little notch? That's what you're trying to line your T up with. Now again, identifying whether or not you're on the compression stroke or not is your primary deal. Because if you're not, any adjustments that you make to your valves are going to be out when it rotates back to its compression stroke. But I've got a way I do it. So there's the first line. Second line. And an F. There's the T there with its mark. So nicely lined up. I'll get the torch out so hopefully you can actually see what's going on in there. So that's the T lined up, and that is how I find my top dead center. Basic, easy, simple. People talk about taking out the spark plug and having a screwdriver sitting in there and watching it go up and down, etc., etc. Honestly, that starts complicating things, I think anyways. All you need to do is find that T mark, and I think the easiest way of explaining why I do it like that is that once we take this cover off and get in there to start doing the adjustments, when you do the adjustments the first time around on this T, I then rotate it 360 degrees, again anti-clockwise, to get back to the T, and then I go back in with the feeler gauges to check to see if they're loose or if they're tight. If they're tight, then you're on the right stroke to start with. If they're loose, then you have just found top dead center, and you just go through the adjustment again. So yeah, that's finding top dead center. What I'll do now is just take off